How do you build a stat block that will be fun for your players to fight against? It's very easy to make a stat block powerful or scary. We can just pump up the numbers. But that's not going to make for a very fun experience at the table. So I have come up with a little checklist. First, if you're making a stat block for a solo boss monster, that stat block needs a buffer. Something to ensure that even if you have the worst luck, your super epic boss battle doesn't end after just one round to a single failed roll against a hold person spell. If you remember my video on legendary resistance alternatives, I divided the alternatives into 4 categories: costly resistances, destructible resistances, multi-phase encounters, and passive threats. Second, your stat block needs to introduce some sort of a tactical choice for your players, and it's important that it's your players who are making that choice. It's very easy to introduce tactical choices for ourselves as the GM. We can just give the monsters 70 spells and call it a day. But to give our monsters the kind of traits and actions that give our players decisions to make, to me, that is where the juice is. It's just that players mostly remember the times when they get to make decisions. For example, my favorite stat block in all of D&D is the Stone Defender. It's just a tiny little guy with a shield, and he can take a reaction to protect someone else from an attack. So as a player, if you come across some Stone Defenders, you have a choice to make. Do you target the Stone Defenders first so you can get rid of that annoying protection? Or do you focus on the boss, even if it's harder, because the sooner you get rid of that boss, the sooner you stop taking fireballs to the face? Third, your stat block needs a threat, something to give your players a sense of danger. Most of the time it's going to mean at least one attack, but you'll often want to make it a bit more interesting than this. This is where we get to have our fun as GMs. And that's because the number one role of a threat isn't just to tell your players if you don't deal with this soon, you will lose your characters. It's also to give you, as the GM, something to narrate. And finally, your stat block needs to be balanced. That is usually the easiest step because it's the only thing we actually have guidelines for. So you just apply those guidelines. But it's important that this is always the last step, because you can always balance a fun idea that's a bit too strong or a bit too weak, but no amount of balance is ever going to turn a bad or boring idea into a fun idea. So make sure your ideas are fun first, and then do the 2 minutes worth of grade school level math to make sure they work as intended.